Today's agenda, we're going to go into, we're going to have an update from Delaware State University President, Dr. Tony Allen, on the new community space, the bridge. I think we can start.
Thank you, Councilman Mills. Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry, before you begin, sir, I want to give Councilman White, acknowledge your presence, and give him a second so you don't miss anything, sir. Thank you, Doc.
Hello, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's a pleasure to see you and to see the other committee members as well. I'm here with my long-term colleague and good friend, the head of the Longwood Foundation, Mr. Thayer DuPont, and Ms. Linda Jennings, who runs the Community Education Building. And we are here about an exciting opportunity of which Thayer will do the heavy lifting today. But I wanted to give you some perspective because I think it's important. Many years ago now, more than a decade actually, Thayer and I were involved in a project as Bank of America was exiting one of its facilities, Bracebridge 2. And it was my responsibility to figure out who might take ownership of that space and use it for the goodwill of the city of Wilmington. Thayer stepped up immediately. We donated that space to him. I believe it was 262,000 square feet. His whole purpose during that time was to build an educational consortium, largely charter schools, but wraparound services as well, to the tune of about 1,500 students who are all at risk and would need the services that this community education building would provide. That's happened, and it's been of good note to the broader community, and certainly a partnership that I relish and continue to think about as we move a lot of those kids to Delaware State University. We have a similar opportunity today. Bank of America is exiting Bracebridge 3, and they have already gone to there to take ownership. That transfer is in process or has happened now, and now we're thinking again about education and health. And Delaware State has already said we want to be a part of that. University of Delaware has acknowledged it as well, and Delaware Law School, in addition to some other health education facilities that Thayer will talk about. Why do we want to do it? Delaware State, in particular, wants to have continued presence in the place where most of our alumni who are Delaware residents reside. We also think we have a unique opportunity to continue to go deeper in the talent pipeline. It's not enough for us to get them when they arrive at Delaware State. So the sooner we can get them, the better. And the other opportunity is we believe we can bring some actual post-secondary opportunities to the city of Wilmington as well, particularly in our College of Health and Behavioral Sciences. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Thayer. We'll be here to take some questions. We know we don't have much time, but we want to make sure that we get all the questions out that you might have on your mind. Thayer?
Great. Thank you, Dr. Allen. Thank you, council members. Appreciate the opportunity. It's been a privilege to partner with Tony as Bank of America and then now Delaware State in multiple ways. He correctly identifies we, Longwood, and then the Community Education Building were the first to say yes to the offer of the building, and we have now built the Community Education Building, which has 4 schools, 7 resident nonprofits, 1,300 students in it. And now we have this opportunity of the donation of Bracebridge 4, which we have not yet accepted. It is contingent upon Bank of America, of all the public funding coming forward. But we are prepared to accept it and making plans as though that public money will come forward. It would bring Delaware State nursing program and more up. It would bring a replication of early college high school. So we would add more high school seats here. And then also Delaware Law School would move downtown, move its entire existing operation downtown. So if we go to the next slide, some of the challenges that are facing the city I don't need to tell you about. We've got a commercial office vacancy rate of nearly 1/3 of our office space. We have public health disparities that have been here for decades and need to be improved upon. And our job opportunities are not as plentiful as they should be. So with this new investment in education, we see the opportunity to address all of those. If we go to the next slide, please. So what are we talking about? This is the Bracebridge 2 building, which is a 270,000 square foot building that is currently office space for Bank of America. They would vacate it at the end of 2025. We would renovate it and open up in the fall of 2027 with the law school, with the nursing program, with a replication of early college. That would be in total around 2,000 students, adults, staff, teachers, and so forth. Newly resident. The law school itself is about 1,000 people that would move downtown. It would be a new center for higher education and a different way to deliver higher education. Multiple universities, multiple high schools, and Kumba grade school all in one space with a central organization led by Linda Jennings, that coordinates and supports and helps them work together with the agencies on site. If we go to the next slide, the specifics of who would be in the space. So today in the existing building, you've got Kumba, which is K-8, Great Oaks High School. You've got High Road School of Delaware. And in the existing space today, you have the University of Delaware's Associate in Arts program. It's a 2-year program. You also have, I'll highlight 2 resident nonprofits. Christiana Care delivers physical health to all those students, all 1,300 of those students, many of those students, more and more every day. And then Delaware Guidance delivers behavioral and mental health support for those students. Linda's organization helps those organizations coordinate on behalf of the students and their families. Should I keep going? Okay.
Yes. Could you, I'm sorry. Excuse me. WIT. Could you mute everyone else? WITN. Thank you.
So with the new site, we would add Widener or Delaware Law School. We would add Delaware State's nursing program and early college high school. We would then ideally swap early college for University of Delaware, so we'd have a university building and a K-12 building. And we are also in the process of building a youth development center that would have 80 to 100 early learning seats, gymnasiums, and some after-school workforce development space. That's on the old Elwyn parking lot that lies halfway between the CEB and Howard High School. We also have interest and intention to bring Dr. Teal and Dr. Coker and Dr. Scatterberry's clinic into the space, their equitable health practice into the space. Gun violence reduction, new effort standing up, and potentially an expansion of zip code into the space. So a great deal of complex activity, but all of it to the benefit of Wilmingtonians. And all of it if we go to the next slide, in a larger vision, this blue box that is, if we can go to the next slide, please. Okay, I'll keep going.
WITN. Next slide, please.
There we go.
Thank you.
This blue box you'll all recognize. Brandywine's on the top. On the bottom is the Riverfront. The red circle is Delaware State's Riverfront campus. The green circle, the red dot in it, is the Bracebridge complex. So you all know this space. The yellow circle is around DCAD and Delaware Tech. Our vision here is that Wilmington is an education campus. My parents probably would have thought of this as the business district. We'd like to think of it as an education district that is the beginning of a rebirth of the city, starting with university students and younger, but university students are, wonderful things flow out of universities, new companies, new nonprofits, new solutions, and just the general activity of 20-somethings running around our city, and all the great things that they do while they're getting educated. So this is the beginning of a rebirth of Wilmington as an education campus.
I don't know. I missed Wilmington Dry Goods.
Okay, fair enough. Maybe it'll come back as a part of this. So if we go to the next slide, just to kind of bring back clarity, now back from the bigger vision, there are 3 structures we're talking about, all within 3 blocks of each other. The existing community education building, which, as I said, has 1,300 students, 4 schools and 7 resident nonprofits. A new youth development center, which is 45,000 square feet, with gyms, a black box theater, early learning seats and some after-school space. And then the red circle is around Building 2. You probably recognize that sky view over the old MBNA complex. Building 2 is what Bank of America is prepared to donate to us, and that is where the law school, Delaware State, and ultimately UD would go into. So just kind of want to, this is the core of the facilities-based strategy, which brings me to my last slide, which is how does the money work? And why are we here today? This is about a $58 million project. And I'm including in that a roughly $10 million value of the building donation itself. I can promise you it cost a lot more than that to build, but that's what we've allocated in here. Is about $48 million of renovation to turn it from office space into school space. We have learned from experience that a donated building is not free, and so that's what this investment is to turn it into its new use. So where might that money come from? Giving Bank of America credit for the $10 million of the donated building. Obviously, very appreciative of that decision. Longwood, if the government sources come through, Longwood is prepared to put another $10 million into this complex. We are hoping and here to ask that the city make a $10 million investment in this project. We are currently in the process of seeking $5 to $10 million from the county and have expressions of interest. I think that's going through the county council process right now. The governor has already allocated $10 million in this year's bond bill to this project. We need to get at least another 13 from the governor or from the state in some form, which we're actively working on it. If all of those sources come through, we would have the wherewithal. If we get them all by June 30th, we could have this open in the fall of 2027. And would very much welcome your comments, any concluding remarks from Tony. But the request today is to consider that $10 million, and happy to answer any questions that any of you may have.
And the only thing that was great there. The only thing I would add is there are some opportunities we believe at the federal level as well. I think you all know about the HBCU Ignite Act, which is specific to infrastructure, sponsored by Congresswoman Alma Adams. I just came from D.C. Talking to Thurgood Marshall College Fund about that as well. That has not passed Congress yet, but if it does, there may be some unique opportunities in that regard. And of course, we're speaking with our own congressional delegation about opportunities with respect to congressionally directed spending as well.
And sorry, one last.
Nope.
Yes, I think there are federal opportunities for the long haul, but in the short run, they're not going to deliver by June 30th. So there's a timing dimension if we want this to happen quickly. So please.
Thank you for your presentation, Mr. DuPont and Dr. Allen. Before we go on, let me acknowledge a few council people that are present. One, we have President Congo online. We have Councilwoman Michelle Harley and Xanthia Oliver, Councilwoman Xanthia Oliver that I've already acknowledged, and Marcelle Bassanite, council staff on as well. And we have the Honorable Jay Street joining us online as well. Thank you. Yeah. Yes, I'm sorry. Oh, Marcelle Bassanite has a question. Thank you, Marcelle.
Yes, Chair. I just wanted to say, for the amount for the city, was a request sent into the administration, to the mayor or anything? Has there been any discussion there?
So yes, the mayor is supportive. Obviously, he recognizes city council needs to be supportive too.
I'm sorry. So let me just clarify. Supportive as far as like putting the $10 million within the budget, or was there any discussions on that line?
He has not been explicit with me about. I wouldn't want to represent exactly how he would like to execute that, but he would like to execute it and execute it in the time frame that we've. So I don't have a specific answer to your question.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions from council?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll yield to
Councilwoman Oliver, you have your hand up?
Yes, that was Michelle, that was my question also. But I just like to say I'm excited to hear about the new campus coming and the law and the nursing and everything that's going on. I know most of this is occurring in the 4th district, but the Elwyn Institute is in the 3rd district. So I was just, I was muted. I was trying to hear a little bit about the Elwyn Institute because I know that's part of the Moore's building. I mean, could you elaborate just a little bit more? I missed that about the Elwyn Institute. So that is in the 3rd district, and we have approved that land to them. So what will be taking place with Bank of America? How's that related to Bank of America? I missed that. I'm sorry.
Thank you. So yes, to clarify, the I think it's the Delaware State Housing Authority and the Community Education Building purchased Elwyn's property.
Correct.
And we have, they own the building and are renovating and putting new use to the building. We have the parking lots, and on those parking lots, and I believe in front of City Council is the opportunity to vacate Wilson Street that will allow us to put a 45,000 square foot youth development center that will have gymnasiums for the existing student body who have no gyms today, and a black box theater, about 80 to 100 early learning seats, and some after school space.
Okay, I'm familiar with that. I thought it was something different. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Councilman White.
clarification, the Alvin Building is owned by the Delaware Affordable Housing Group.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
I guess my question in reference to the dollars, I know we're going through budget season right now, and if the 10 million, if you don't secure the 10 million by June 30th, how much of a delay would that be for the project?
I would, first of all, it creates some risk that the parties, since government tends to act around, its sessions, I'm thinking of the state in particular, they probably wouldn't act until the following year. So we'd probably lose a year.
Okay.
And do any of the parties lose interest in a year? I can't promise you they are all very excited and interested right now. I would hope we could keep their interest for a year. Who knows?
Gotcha.
And just as one party, we wouldn't lose interest in it. We have
Okay,
a unique vested interest in the city of Wilmington, as you know.
very much. Councilwoman Harley?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
First of all, I want to thank the gentleman for that great presentation. And I also want to mention that Linda Jennings and her team, under her leadership, they have really improved the whole curriculum and all the great things that are happening at the Community Education Building. And I'm super excited about how they are moving things forward. Of course, on behalf and on behalf of our children, most importantly, and that's going to benefit our children. I'm not sure why I'm just now hearing about what is taking place and how soon funds are needed. I'm not sure, but I'm just now hearing about it. And the reason why I'm mentioning it is because we are in our budget season, and had we heard about this earlier, maybe there could have been more discussion around it. So I just wanted it to be known that as the representative for that particular building, I do have a relationship with Linda. I just wanted it to be made known that I'm just now hearing about it. And again, like I said, I wanted to give kudos to the administration that is there and the leadership that is there. But I really wish I had known about this sooner. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
All right. Thank you for your comment, Councilwoman. That agreed. I mean, it's a wonderful project, and I was glad Dr. Allen called and wanted to come before a committee. That was the first I was hearing about it as well. Was mentioned a conversation that he and I had, and I thought it definitely needed to be heard by the entire committee and also by the community constituents as well. So, but timing, do we wish it would have happened 5 months ago and we could have had some of these discussions during budget time? Yes, but it's never too late. We can start talking about it now and moving this forward. I do have one question. In reference to the housing for the law students, how would that work?
So right now, I believe the market will solve that problem. There is not a full plan, but I would anticipate that some of our vacant office space gets converted into apartments. We are also in conversation with Reach Riverside, you know, if we needed to build something there. We don't have the funds to build there, but that's a possible partnership opportunity. Logan is on our board.
So possibly more apartments in the city.
That we'll need them, right?
Yep.
Because it's hard to get an apartment today,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
To the timing question, if I may, I agree with you. The timing is short. Bank of America didn't make their decision to vacate the building and want it to be public until about 3 months ago.
Okay.
So we've been moving about as quickly as we can since
Understand.
then. Yep.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Councilwoman Fields?
Yes, thank you, Committee Chair. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to both of the gentlemen for presenting tonight. And as a historical Black college university graduate, I am excited to hear that these two entities are working together to bring a HBCU to the city of Wilmington, where not just those who are alumni, but those aspiring children or it could be someone that went to technical school says, hey, Dell State is close to me now, maybe I can go there. So I just want to say I think this is a great idea, and I look forward to hearing more about it. And I would like to possibly be a part of the conversation. Even though I did graduate from Norfolk State University, Mr. Allen,
Behold, behold, Councilwoman.
good work, and let's keep up the good work. We have to make sure that we are letting our community know that you have an opportunity to go to school, and it's right here in the city of Wilmington. So I just want to give you your accolades for both of you working on this to ensure that our community, the Black and Brown community, have a chance to secondary education. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Oliver? Yes, go ahead, Councilwoman Oliver. See your hand is raised again.
Yes, thank you. I too just want to echo what both my council members said. Being on the finance committee, I'm just surprised this is our first time hearing about the $10 million, and we have been in the budget season. So I just wanted to echo with Councilman Hardy said and what you said, and I don't know if Brigida said it, but I just wanted to echo that this is the first that we've heard of $10 million, which is a great project. But I'm just surprised nobody's mentioned it, and we've been in the budget season, even if it just came up 3 months ago. We've been in the budget season, and this is a time to discuss these type of deals, especially you're talking about $10 million. That's a lot of money. I would think that, we've meeting every week, and you heard Marshall said it, and she's the finance person, and it's obvious this is the first she said it. So I just want to put that out in the universe that this is our first time hearing about this great project. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Passionite?
Yeah, Chairman, if I can.
Yes, please.
The mayor's chief of staff couldn't make it to the meeting, but I did reach out to her, to Ms. Tanya Washington, and she did share that the mayor is amenable and is supportive of this project, and did share that, if anything was to be done, that it would have to come before council. But I know we are in the midst of budget season, and I did share with her that I would just share that because she wanted to make sure that was known.
Okay.
So
Yes.
before you, so would this be, since we haven't passed FY25, will we be able to add this to FY25's budget, or would this have to be a separate budget amendment?
That would have to be like a conversation with the administration. And the reason I say that, Councilwoman Bracy, because a 10 million ask is typically like a capital type of item, and I don't want to speak for the administration without having that conversation with Ms. Washington.
Okay,
All right.
but that conversation is coming, or we're gonna follow up.
Yes. All
Okay.
right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for that clarity. Yeah. All right, President Congo, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, I just want to echo the sentiments of a lot of my colleagues and just being extremely excited and grateful about what is coming to Wilmington. Especially being a Delaware State University grad, that makes it even sweeter. And I'm sure that we would do what we need to do as elected officials to make this happen. Late or not, we just have to kind of focus on what's in front of us and do what's best for the people in this community and for the university and for those children. So again, thank you both, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Agree. Thank you, President Congo. Councilwoman Harley?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I do want to apologize for getting on the call a little late, and I apparently missed some individuals and some information. So with all due respect, Dr. Allen, hello, I want to acknowledge you. And I plan to listen to the beginning of this presentation because I got bits and pieces. And again, like I said, I apologize, multitasking, helping, handle another business. But I do want to say, I am excited about what I did hear as it relates to the pieces that I have been putting together, which sounds like there is a partnership with Del State University, along with, it sounds like another partnership there. And I guess what I'm wondering as well as wanting to acknowledge the great work and the effort that is being put into bringing something of this sort and of this magnitude downtown. Is there meetings taking place about this that the council members, can participate in? So even though this is our first time, well, at least the majority of us, it's our first time hearing about it, we're all pretty interested based on what I've heard so far. So that's what I wanted to know, Mr. Chair, how we can stay connected and how we can find out more, because we do have a fiduciary responsibility as well as it relates to our budget. And for those of us that have been a part of the budget process know pretty much where we stand with our reserves, with our small surplus. And we had a wrap-up meeting yesterday, which there were things that came out as it related to those reserves is not as high as we thought they were originally. So I just wanted to put that out there for those that have not heard the latest as it relates to the reserves. So if you're thinking about the reserves, like it's not as much as we thought originally, but still, again, keeping hope alive and being intentional regarding trying to make something positive like this happen. Hey, I think it's something to consider in terms of, moving forward. So I really would like to know how we can stay engaged with this topic.
Councilwoman
Chair.
Harley, thank you for those comments. It's Tony. What I would say to you is Thayer and Linda in particular, just because of their proximity, are very, very interested in updating as many stakeholders as possible and are on a bit of a roadshow now. So this is a part of that. But we're happy to give you an individual one-on-one conversation. And that's an extension to all of the council members at your earliest convenience.
Definitely.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you.
Councilman White?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's obvious that the excitement in the room for this project is overwhelming. However, I'm a bit more concerned about the overall impact upon the neighborhood. And I see that you have 50 business starts. I mean, I'd be interested in how what starts, are they minority business, especially? We're at the footsteps of the most oldest and historic community in the city of Wilmington, and that would be Wilmington's East Side. Mm-hmm. And I don't necessarily, let me put it like this, I think we need to have a little focus on that community. Although it's not my district, it is my city. And the overall arching communities, how do we bring them into this investment? And what does that look like? Because quite often we see these projects, those who are on the outside, and they say they don't include us. Now we know that that may not be true, but sometimes the perception is more than reality. So as I'm looking through this, if we're talking about housing, and we're talking about business, and we're talking about facilities for other community groups, I just think that at some point there should be a deeper dive in what that looks like, and make certain, or I would suggest that those stakeholders have a voice at that table, an active voice. I mean, I understand the role philanthropy plays in this state, and it's amazing and it's good, but I don't want us to lose focus of what's the immediate gain. And I know on the health side, I know Dr. Coker's work, I know that, but that penetration to these stakeholders to our east is significantly important, and this could be an opportunity to bring them along, whether it's a local hire, whether it's a part of the construction effort, whether it's, as the councilwoman said, educational opportunities. So I would just look forward to hearing a little bit more about that in the coming weeks and months.
I know Thayer will have a view too, but I would say absolutely. When we talk about the bridge, just think about those three areas: CEB, this new facility, and DSU Riverfront. DSU Riverfront has two big components to it. First is the hub of our adult and continuing learning facility and our graduate school, and the second is minority entrepreneurship. We have a tenant in there now called Bronze Valley Capital that is doing some venture capital opportunities with minority businesses for the opportunity for them to create new, unique opportunities here. I think also if you put into what this might portend for the city, particularly as it relates to greater housing, more business opportunities, while we might not be at the tip of the spear there,
Right.
The actual activity, to your point, will spur a lot of that. So how we focus our efforts in that regard, particularly as it relates to people of color and the specific contiguous communities to it, I think is an important question for us.
And Dr. Allen, I appreciate that. It's interesting, when you mentioned the bridge, this is what came to my mind. South Bridge, 16th Street Bridge, Mayor Baker Bridge. And these are all funnels into communities of color and communities of challenge and communities of necessity. So that is the conversation that's at the table. The perception needs to, or I suggest that perception needs to meet the reality. And I'm not suggesting that this project can do all for, but there should, I think the role of philanthropy in this process should say, this is the community, these are the opportunities, and is there a way to bring the players that are not on this page to the table is as significant as those ones that are on.
So
and I welcome that, and I welcome your comments.
Points well taken. There.
If I may second your comments, the community education building has more than 2/3 of its student population are Wilmingtonians. The beauty of adding this new building to the existing structure is you already have a pipeline of K-12 that is Wilmingtonians. You're adding early college, which is an accelerated pipeline of Wilmingtonians into Delaware State and other universities. So we are educating a population of Wilmingtonians to be a part of the solutions, which includes launching new businesses, launching the restaurants, launching with support from an entrepreneurial center, which launching the healthcare solutions. So we already are involving, and one of the things that Linda and her team do very well is to listen to the families of those students. We are already getting jobs for the parents of those students to change the circumstances for those students. There's a slide in here about 2 phlebotomy classes that have grown. We've doubled the income of populations of Wilmington parents of the students in our building. So there is a lot more to be done, but we already are a building that is of the city, and our intent is to amplify that with this addition.
And I would just say, Councilman White, you're creating a continued right pressure point.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, and I'm very familiar with the work of CEB, and I'm holistically supportive. It's just an opportunity. I get this opportunity to say, you guys are doing a great job. However, there are other views, there's other pressure points, and I'm an impatient person. So forgive me for that. I'm impatient, and I know it's coming, but that message is not always conveyed or articulated in a manner that meets the needs of the most dispersed city. And I'm not suggesting that this is a one-all cure-all, but I want to have that conversation or allow you to have that conversation outside your bridge to connect with those bridges I identified. And I have no doubt the work that you're doing is long-lasting and will have a tremendous impact upon the city, the youth, and their parents. I just think that there should be another conversation.
We're eager to have that conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Oliver again?
Yes, thank you, Councilman White. I was going to send an email. I would like to have another meeting regarding everything we're talking about that's occurring on the east side, because I did have a petition that they didn't even want that lot. They didn't even want me to get that lot approved. There was a lot of people that was against it, and I had to come out and defend the reason why we should have that lot, that street. And one of the main points was because of the traffic, and because no one had been out on the east side to talk to the residents on the east side about it. They had meetings at the community service building, and I met with Ms. Morrison and various other people, but no one has came and said, let's have a meeting in Howard. So I did send that message, and I did call State Rep. So Vince, I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm going to send an email that I would like to speak to someone. It needs to be some more engagement on the east side, as you stated, because now this is a whole nother animal that we're talking about, and no one has brought it to my attention, and no one has brought it to the community. So we can talk offline. Those we can have a meeting in Howard and let the community know what's going on. I really would appreciate that, but we could talk offline, because I know we have a short time and we have other speakers coming on, but I want to put that out there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yep, I've noted that as well, and I'll make sure we get that up to the council staff, maybe to Marcel and the chief. And my question, Doc, was to see if there's any way before we pass this budget, if we can maybe set up a Zoom with
Oh, sure.
Ms.
Certainly.
Linda,
Of
Mr.
course.
DuPont, yourself?
Yeah.
Of course.
If that's possible, Ms. Marcel, to have a Zoom with the entire council to try to, we can all get this information, if we're even going to consider trying to get it into this year's budget.
Be very happy to.
Okay.
At your convenience.
Okay,
As
thank
long
you.
as it's after Friday.
Long as it's after Friday. All right. Councilwoman Harley?
Yeah, I'm glad that, well, first of all, it sounds like everyone is pretty much on the same page, but again, I want to say that Linda Jennings and her team have done a excellent job.
Agree.
Again, even with forward thinking as it relates to our children, and that the majority of Wilmingtonians, those children are Wilmingtonians, the majority of them, and a number of them live on the east side. So I just wanted to say that I believe that this whole idea and this whole project and initiative and forward thinking has a lot to do with the brown and black children. Like, they're already there. They're already thinking about them. They're already a part of the pipeline of what they are, how they are trying to take them to the next level. So I just wanted to say that as the representative, of course, having more dialogue, with the leadership there, and having more contact and more interaction and understanding about the programming, because they have done a excellent job with lifting up and wrapping more services around our children there. They're at a point that they can pretty much get everything that they would need in a household there in the community education building. So I just felt as though that I wanted to just share that with the rest of the council. And then as it relates to us talking about the finances, we really need to hear that again and understand all those moving parts as we move forward and think about coming together and having this meeting in terms of the budget that we have right now. So Mr. DuPont already agreed that he is willing to share more information with us. So I just wanted to, include that information in terms of community education building, already highlighting, amplifying, underscoring our brown and black children, all children, but definitely they are not overlooking our brown and black children. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, Councilwoman. All right, appreciate it. Thank you all for your time. And I just, in closing, just say I appreciate the vision, appreciate what you guys are attempting to do in our city. My brother and I travel a lot, and we see these kind of projects, and we think, man, we should have that in Delaware. And to have that coming to Delaware is going to be a beautiful thing, and I'm glad to be a part of it. And you guys, let's try to make this happen. And it may seem like a struggle to get it in right now, but let's see what we can. I mean, we've seen miracles happen before, and this is a much needed miracle in our community. So let's do the work. And Ms. Linda, I don't know if you had any words you wanted to say, but I want to say thank you and appreciate the work you're doing as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Appreciate it.
Yes. All right. And next up, we have a resolution by Councilwoman Harley.
Okay, let's see here. I am not prepared to present it at this time, Mr. Chair, so I am going to hold it, and you can go to your next item. Do you have other items on the agenda?
We do have one more. Thank you, Councilwoman. All right, so next up, we'll have the update on the Reading Consortium plan regarding Christina and Colonial School District redistricting by the Honorable Jay Street and my state representative, Namdi Chukocha.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity to provide this update. It is good to be back in this chamber again and good to be a part of this esteemed body. And I remember our first meeting in this room, I was sitting in that very chair my brother's in today. So I'm grateful to be back here and to be speaking upon a topic that is very dear to not only my heart, but to the heart of our city. As all of us know, in the late 70s, we lost our school district, and we lost a lot when we lost that. And many have been fighting very diligently to do what we can to improve the educational outcomes for our children. And I'll begin with the slide, and I will introduce, as you mentioned, the Honorable County Councilman Jay Street, who is my co-chair, co-lead in terms of the redistricting work for the Reading Consortium. And his history speaks for itself in terms of fighting for the educational outcomes and equity for our children in the city of Wilmington and throughout our state. So I'm honored to have the opportunity to speak a little bit about Reading. If we can go to the next slide. The Reading Consortium, what was created in 2019, Senator Lockman and I created the Reading Consortium to address the issues of, many of us know we have this 4-district model that was left, the remnants of DSEG in terms of for our city. Many feel that it has long outlived its usefulness in terms of the impact that it has on our city. There have been study after study after study. This very body, City Council, was a part of a body in 2000 that created a report that said that we need to get away from the 4-district model. In 2008, there was another study, and Councilman Street will speak a little bit about many of those previous reports and how they got us to where we are today. But our goal for the Reading Consortium is to produce recommendations and policy recommendations for ways that we can improve the educational outcomes for our children and achieve educational equity for the cities of Wilmington students and throughout Newcastle County. Next slide, please. And just speaks about where we created in terms of the bills themselves. The mandates are redistricting mandate. On the next slide, the redistricting mandate about how we created Reading and our goals and objectives. And again, it shall develop a proposal for redistricting in the city of Wilmington in northern Newcastle County. That was one of our chief and primary charges for the Reading Consortium. And throughout since 2019 when we started, we've been working diligently, and then of course we ran into a global pandemic. And with that, it was very difficult. Our schools were under siege to meet the needs of our children, so they really didn't have the bandwidth to focus on redistricting during COVID. So we're really just beginning to revisit this conversation, and I'm glad to say that it's moving forward at a pace that is acceptable, because it has been long enough for the needs of our children. Over the past few, the next slide, please. Then over just some of the progress in our educational landscape, some of the changes that have occurred within the city of Wilmington. Next slide, please. So there have been increased funding and support for low-income families, and many of this has focused on my co-chair, county councilman, in the lawsuit that they filed against the state, which brought additional resources into our city and to meet the needs of not only our students, but students who are in need throughout the state, but in particular high-need schools and high-need students in the city of Wilmington. So there are increased supports, wraparound services, and highly effective educators and building leaders, increased parent and community engagement in terms of our schools. Many of this, as I said, as the next slide, has been brought forth through the opportunity lawsuit with the opportunity funding, which has increased, as well as the K-3 basic special education funds. There are annual $4 million investment for teacher recruitment and retention, and Budsperson program, which was started statewide as a part of this, as well as equity projects in terms of schools now. They have to have an equity statement and part of their needs assessment. The key things for our city: the city of Wilmington hasn't received a new school in our city since the mid-'70s. Since the mid-'70s was the last time a new school was created. And if you look in other areas of the city, every area of the city has new schools except for the city of Wilmington. Many of our schools are in need of dire repair, and so we do have our first new school being built here in the city, the Maurice Pritchett Senior Academy, which will replace the current Bancroft School. And that project, grateful to our governor and the General Assembly, it was no local funds included in that. So the city didn't have to pay, the local districts didn't have to pay at all. It was all state funded. And it was a price tag that's very lofty. And it started lofty at $50 million, and I promise you it didn't end at $50 million. And it was all state funded. And if you haven't had the opportunity, please, I encourage you to take a tour of it, because it's a beautiful building. Will really help to meet the needs of our students. The Bayer School was renovated, as well as Stubbs Early Education Center, and the former Pulaski School is now an early education center on that side of the city. Next slide, please. So the Reading Consortium, we are working with we created many slots in the early child care program. A lot of our focus during COVID was working with our teachers to address many of the diversity issues and inequities. We also created, with our governor and General Assembly, and funded the Wilmington Learning Collaborative, and they are a body that is working to bring cohesion amongst the various districts that serve our city, so that there can be some commonality in terms of their educational approach, in terms of professional development, in terms of curriculum, and in terms of supports that are provided inside and outside of our schools. Early education, of course, I mentioned increased slots for early education, and then the mental health needs. And our state has really had a strong mental health focus, creating a mental health unit for our students, and additional funding for our schools, that each of our schools qualify for additional mental health supports. I will now yield to County Councilman on the next slide to speak a little bit about the history, and he's going to speak about how did we get here. And then I'll follow up after the councilman and speak about our next steps. Councilman Street, next slide, please.
Thank you, Representative. I'm gonna go all the way back to 1978 and come forward expeditiously. And the reason I'm going back there is because when the litigation that brought about the 1978 order, it was brought about on behalf of two segregated school districts, the city of Wilmington and the Delaware School District. When we got the final deseg order of 9 and 3, 9 years out of the city for our kids, 3 years in the city for county kids, the 11 districts, what they did was they took the city of Wilmington and desegregated it with the schools basically on the school districts formerly on the northern side of the county. With Delaware, they desegregated on the basis of Delaware and primarily Gunning Bedford on the southern side of the county. And then in 1980, the state board, well, the Department of Education at the time decided that it wanted to go from 1 district to 4. It was at that point we formed the Coalition Save Our Schools, ultimately became Coalition Save Our Children, and we went in court and opposed the 4 districts. Well, the Judge Schwartz at the time, let the state have its way because the General Assembly had passed it, and as long as it didn't violate his 9 and 3 order, it was fine. And that started in 1981. On the eve of the beginning of school with the 4 districts, Colonial, who inherited Riverside as a result of the former superintendent Brandywine's position that it wasn't fair, he had the bucket and he had Riverside, and the superintendent of coming to be Colonial said, well, I'll take one of them. And he did. In exchange for that, he got the mall. It was transferred from Christina to Colonial. He got the port, and he got funding equalization. On the eve of starting school, they decided they were going to close King School. Now, you only got 1 school in the city, you're going to close it. So I asked the lawyers to go in and challenge that in court. It was a violation of the 9 and 3. We did, and I got the transcript right here, August 25th, 1981. The judge went berserk. He started screaming and hollering and yelling at the lawyers, saying that the black kids want to be treated like the white kids' schools are closed. Percentage-wise, it's less than the black schools, and it's unfair to everybody. In the meantime, 13 years out of the city. Now I'm grown now, and there was the first time Judge Williams and I got into it, and I said, Judge, you got to appeal this. Well, we're not going to appeal it because we don't want to lose the judge. No, you just lost him. He just said he doesn't give a whatever about us. I'm saying all that to say, we're at the point now where those kids, and they open King once, and then they close it again. Those kids, for basically the last 40 years, have been bussed out of the city for 13 years. Now they go all the way, the kids in Riverside, go all the way to Newcastle Elementary, for elementary school, go to McCullough for middle school, and William Penn for high school. But what has actually happened is you took the kids from the former desegregated school district and put them in the heart of the other former segregated school district for 13 years. But I just want to make sure you had that background as it relates to Colonial. So as far as I'm concerned, it's a 43-year journey. We fight, we're in court for 3 years, the court order is lifted. Now come the General Assembly with the Charter School Act, the Choice School Act, and in 2000, the Neighborhood School Act. Well, to his credit, Mr. Gilliam, who was running the Urban League at the time it just started, demanded that there be a specific plan to address the needs of city children. That was the neighborhood school plan. We met for 6 months, presented our plan to city council. City council modified it to make it a river plan, but it requested a reduction in the number of districts in the city and a weighted funding formula for high poverty schools. No legislation was even sponsored. 2008, the Women's Education Task Force was set about the task of doing the same thing. I sat on it. Our recommendation was a reduction in the number of districts in the city and a weighted funding formula for high poverty schools. No legislation was ever sponsored. 2015, the Women's Education Improvement Commission is formed. Tony Allen ran that, and I said, Tony, I'm too much weight for y'all to carry going into this. But the state of Delaware as a state has never done anything to advance the educational plight of low-income, at-risk, and black and brown children unless a judge compelled them to do so. The only thing that they've ever done is the Early Childhood Education Initiative that was brought about during the Minner administration, continued on through Markell administration, and continued through this administration. That's the only initiative that's ever been done without a judge or judges intervening. But I told Tony that. And then I went to the General Assembly when the Women's Education Improvement Commission's recommendation was recommended a weighted funding formula and a reduction in the number of districts. I went down to that hearing in the House and I said, I'm not going to stand here and beg y'all to do right by my children. I really don't care what you do. Don't pass it. I'm going to sue you. That's what I did. And I did it with a view, we did, the NAACP and the Delaware for Education Opportunity. But with the thought in my head that based on what happened with Judge Swartz in 1981, no judge would ever compel the state to change districts. That's the way I thought up until early this year. And then I thought about the fact, wait a minute, there's a 40-year record here as it relates to Colonial. As it relates to Christina, there's a 23-year record here. As we speak, well, actually over the last at least 10 years, Christina School District has had the worst proficiency scores in the state, where 0 to 10% proficient, which means 90 to 100% of the kids are not proficient. And nobody's been able to do anything about it. 2012, Christina, not by J Street, by OCR, was found to have discriminated and disciplined district-wide at all levels. Nobody was held responsible, nobody was held accountable. My point being, and you needn't go any further than week before last, we got eight kids, mostly girls, arrested at Newark High School. And as I said on county council floor, the genesis of this wasn't whatever happened in that school. The genesis of it, y'all knew before they left Byron and Bancroft, they couldn't compete and function academically. Didn't you wonder why they're down there raising Cain? And these children, given what, through no fault of their own, what they haven't learned, what they don't know, what they've been deprived of, and these bus rides, are entitled to relief. The parents are entitled to relief. And I'll close with the same thing I told the Reading Consortium. I really don't care what y'all do. I don't care. If you don't pass it, and you know, number one, Representative Nambi and I don't agree on this. I think we should be back to one school district. He thinks we should have a Wilmington school district. This is a compromise plan. And what we agree on is 2 is better than 4, and I'm not willing to accept 4 anymore. And so what I said to the Reading Consortium is, I don't care what y'all do. I'm not gonna beg y'all either, because I think these children are entitled to relief, both academically and transportation-wise. There's a 40 to 23-year record, however you want to present it. And the worst thing a judge can tell me is no. But I think, given that if the state board hadn't lost its power and authority under Senator Carper when he reorganized the Department of Public Instruction and took away the state board's authority, in any other district in the nation where a state board had power, the city schools in Christina would have been closed. And if the state board used its own standards for closing charter schools, all those schools would have been closed. So that's the background, that's the history, and as I can recall it, but most importantly, where we're going. And I'm not going to close because changing the districts doesn't resolve the problem. Those children those classrooms need to be cut in half. Some of those children need one-on-one, individual, small group instruction before school, after school, opportunities for year-round schools. We need to put fun back in school with the art. You can tell me right now who the art teacher or music teacher is at Bancroft. And all those children who we know are not proficient now in the high schools from no fault of their own, they need additional remedial services too, and that's part and parcel to what this fight is about. And I'm sorry if I took too long, but you know, I'm not looking for a fight, but I think I got one more trial left in me, if that's what I have to do, even though I'm 6 years into the last one. It's not over yet either, because we're still fighting with the counties.
All right. Thank you, Councilman. Appreciate your work.
Thank you, Councilman Street, and I will just follow. Thank you sincerely for your involvement with Reading and your accepting that call to help me in this effort, because it really helps balance things out. As you noted, my dear Uncle Jay and I disagree on it. He really believes we need a county district again, and I really believe we need a city district again. I understand why he doesn't think we can have a city district, because and I know if I went to the General Assembly tomorrow and I asked them to support legislation for a City of Wilmington School District, it would pass through the House and Senate tomorrow, but it wouldn't pass with the resources and the supports that we need. So that's why I agree with my uncle that this is a compromise, and we realize that we have to look at where we are. When we think about how we got here, the Neighborhood Schools Act passed through the General Assembly in 2000. And for the past 25 years, it has been a failure to our city. Our outcomes have decreased every year. Right now, currently, we have, I believe the last number was close to 55 vacancies, teacher vacancies within the city of Wilmington. 26 of them, I believe, are over at Bancroft School. Now, you tell me how that this district, and I'm not pointing at Christina like they're the problem. I believe that a part of the problem is this broken 4-district model and Christina is just a victim of that, because they are a non-contiguous district. So they're based in Newark, and they can't meet the needs of our students. They just can't. And no disrespect to the teachers there. Some of my favorite teachers, Ms. Lewis over at Bayer, they're in that district and they work hard every single day. So it's not a knock on the professionals in that building. It's a knock against the district, this 4-district model. And for us, for so long, as the Councilman Street noted, we came up with all of these plans, but we never got to the point of legislation, of doing something about it. We'll come up with a plan. We did the same thing. We went all the way down to General Assembly. I was in that seat, and I was appointed to WEAC, and we went down to the General Assembly, and we fell short in the Senate on the vote. So Now, when Tizzy and Senator Lockman and I got there, we thought we were going to just pick up where we had left off, but has been very difficult. So where we are today with Reading, our charge is, of course, to look at the redistricting for the city of Wilmington, but also one thing Councilman Street didn't mention, he talked a little bit about the revenue that Colonial District receives. So people say, why Colonial? Colonial has a few hundred students. Most of their students are in other schools, charter schools, or choice elsewhere. But the way that the equalization formula was frozen, they receive $3 million every year from the other districts for fewer than a couple hundred students. So that's why we're saying that we believe they need to go as well. And they are in agreement. The district themselves realize that they're not serving the city of Wilmington the way they can, and that those students will be better served. So when we look at our approach today, Reading is at a position actually tomorrow. We're going to present our interim plan. Our interim plan is stating our basically our 3 steps right now. And the first step, we believe, is acknowledging that we need to do something about the crisis that's going on in our city, and that immediate crisis is the Christina School District. The councilman mentioned their proficiency rates and how low they are, lowest in the state, have been that way, and there doesn't seem to be an effort. And I'm not sure who all watched the Christina board meeting last night, but the board voted no confidence in the leadership, and in superintendents. So there are challenges with that district, and adding on to them some of our highest need schools and highest need communities, it doesn't seem to be a good mix to address it. So our plan tomorrow, our interim plan in terms of Reading, we will present our first section of our interim plan will be for the removal of Christina School District. We'll vote on that. Our second section is about the things that need to happen in terms of our plan itself. It has 13 stipulations, and they address everything from teacher recruitment to transportation to the boundaries. Everything that will be taken into consideration that's needed to make this happen has to be in these 13 stipulations. So in that section, it's not fast. So that's going to be, we're saying 12 months to 18 months to work with our stakeholders, our districts, the Department of Education, to address that. And then the third part is really that action item, the wraparound services, the supports. And there will be a fourth section, I believe, that we're going to add tomorrow, is about an assessment, and assessments of our community, so we can really see what are the needs. You can't ask one district to take this community if you haven't really addressed the needs and understand the needs of that community, the needs that those students have. Not just talking academic, but we're talking about the social, the mental health supports that are needed to help make not only our communities whole, but our city whole. So that's where we are. Tomorrow we're going to vote on that. And then there is a House concurrent resolution where Senator Lockman and I'm writing a resolution that will support that same vote, that Christina will no longer serve the city. And in the interim, it mentioned in our slide the Wilmington Learning Collaborative. The Wilmington Learning Collaborative currently has an MOU with all of the city schools, and they're working off that MOU. And in July 1, that MOU changes already. So we're hoping that working with the MOU, within the MOU, that they can begin to help us begin to address the needs of addressing some of the immediate needs that need to take place currently. Because our plan in terms of seeing a true change in our district won't happen for a few years. So we're not saying Christina's going to leave as soon as this vote. No, it definitely won't happen. The process is we vote as a consortium, then we have to go to the state board votes on it, it comes to the General Assembly, then it goes to the governor. So we are years away from any change directly, but we are very optimistic that this is the first step, because this is the first step we've actually gotten to the point where we have a true piece of legislation, and we have a measure, and we have a lot of consensus and support that we believe will lead us in the right direction. We are also will send a draft of our resolution, hopefully that we can get a supporting resolution from City Council to support us in our efforts as well. I'm not sure if there are any direct questions, but I'm sure myself and the councilman will welcome the opportunity to address them.
All right. Thank you, Representative. We do have Councilwoman Oliver has her hand raised.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. First, I'd like to give kudos and to State Rep Nomney and Representative State Street for taking on this charge for our kids in the city of Wilmington who have been forgotten. I think, Rep. Nominee, you have said a lot, but one of my questions, well, I want to make a few statements. I've been very involved with going around to various schools, taking walkthroughs, and then to find out that Bancroft has 27 non-certified teachers at that school. So I'm hoping that resolution passes in Dover, because I was going to say, I'm just going to make a statement because there's nothing you can do about it. Because I was going to say, how do we resolve and try to find some qualified staff? When you're talking about 27 non-certified teachers, and I go in Bancroft, and when I tell you they are running around, the hall smell, I mean, the teachers are being assaulted, they're being cursed out. It's no secret to you, but to put it out there, that Christina School District and superintendent needs to go. And he's not from here, not that it makes it different, but based on what I've seen at the various schools, he really doesn't care. Because he's from downstate, he brought a lot of his friends from downstate, and I don't care what nobody said. Sometimes you need people that live in your neighborhood. It should be a mixture. Another thing I wanted to state, and I'm going to reiterate that the grades, when I find out the grades, I mean, when I tell you these grades are low grade levels, it's ridiculous. It's really sad that no one, and the parents need to be more involved. There is a meeting at Bayard on June the 4th on a Tuesday in the auditorium at 7, and I plan on getting a flyer out there and trying to find as many parents as possible, because the parents need to be involved. One other thing I like to say, when I was working at McKean High School with Donald Patton, it wasn't even a bus that got them kids to school. If they missed the 6 o'clock bus, it was no other bus. I called Del Dot, talked to Greg, I think Chambers at the time. We was trying to work on something. Still to the day, in their city kids that go to McKean High School, there's not a bus to take them kids out there. So to me, this whole system, and I'm glad you're on it trying to change something, these people don't care about our kids, and they are failing. I know 2 of the girls who was in the fight at Newark, and as Representative J. Street said, them girls are on a real low level of grade level and reading level. So they are angry, they know how to fight, and that's the way they react. They just don't care about our kids. One other question, and I do have a question that I wanted to ask, how do we as council members get it out, because it's a misunderstanding based on an article. A lot of parents or people have misread it, and we're talking about redistricting. They are saying that, oh, now it's a brand new school in Wilmington, and now y'all want to bust, not y'all, just saying just say Christiana School District or the governor or whoever, because the people that they're not knowledgeable, so they don't know. Saying that it's a new school, we never had a new school, and now they read something in the paper, but it wasn't this, but it's a misinterpretation that now you want to close down the schools and bring, resegregate all over and bring them into the brand new school and send our people out to the school. So I think it needs to be, so it would be, I guess, desegregation in an opposite way. But I think that interpretation, somehow that needs to be corrected and put out there, that is not what's happening, even if you're considering a Wilmington school, because people are angry. I know I talked to 6 people after they read the article about redistricting, and in their minds they're saying, oh, y'all don't want, now it's a brand new school. After all these years, everybody said we needed a school, and now you want to send our kids back out to the suburbs, basically redistricting. I'm just, and as you stated, a lot of our kids have mental health issues, social issues. I mean, I'm just glad the Wilmington Collaborative is really, looking into this, because it's really sad that, we're just sitting back and you just seeing the kids. It was bad enough COVID, but I mean, I could go on and on and on, but I will be at the meeting on June the 4th, and, Representative, just keep, and Jay, just keep this fight up, because it's really sad what's happening to our kids, and that guy needs to go.
No, I
he doesn't
appreciate
care.
I appreciate your comments, Councilwoman Oliver, and it is sad, and it really, to me, it reflects a lot on our community. When we lost our communities, our schools, we lost the heart of our communities. I often tell the story of growing up in Riverside, Northside. I never attended George Gray School, but I remember being in there as a kid. I remember having programs inside there because that was our community school. And it was the same thing when we moved to Northside. PS was always open. Warner was always open for our recreation. We had these schools. They were the hearts of our community. When we lost our school districts, we lost controls of the schools. The schools now control when the schools were going to be open and when they were going to close, not the city. And we lost a lot because the schools were no longer connected. The Councilwoman, you mentioned the point about the parental involvement, and it really takes each one of us. I mean, on the city council or state representatives, senators, our community centers, all advocating and informing our parents to get more involved. The WLC has a strong initiatives about parent councils, but right now, we mentioned, as Councilman Street said, that the lowest performing schools in the state are Christina School District, but some of the highest parent satisfaction scores in the state for their schools are Christina schools. So we need to begin to educate our parents, speak to them about what's happening inside of our schools so that they become aware of the role that they play. Councilwoman also mentioned about people having a fear that other people are coming into our city again and going to take over our schools. Sadly, that's never going to happen again. Our schools are segregated now than they ever have been. The only few schools that they have are schools like PS, that where they have the special programs, the art programs, STEM programs inside of those schools, and they bus kids in for there. So on the outside of the school, it looks diverse because you see all these different kids go in, but once you go inside the school, it's segregated inside of the school. So it's still there. It's just a matter of how we're viewing it. We will never get back to a 9-2. And we thought that was unfair to us, thinking now, like where we got bused for 9 years and they came into the city for 3 years. I used to think that was unfair, as a student. I thought that was unfair, but now I wish we can go back to that because those 3 years we knew they weren't going to send their kids in here to these schools like this today. But now we don't even have 9-3. They don't even, the whole Neighborhood Schools Act started because the representative didn't want his daughter to go to school in the city of Wilmington and created this.
Right.
And they said back then, the Neighborhood Schools Act, Sister Ray, Uncle Jay, and all of them who were on that board said that all you're going to do is create these high-need, high-poverty schools. And they did just that. And we did nothing. We came up with a report and nothing happened. So finally, it's time for us to say that we need to do something about this. And the last thing I'll say to my council members, I remember sitting in that chair and they told me we have no role in education. And I remember calling Freeman Williams in here into that big chamber and we had this big old forum. And I know I had no authority, but I inserted myself in that conversation. So as a state representative, I inserted city council on Reading. We have a council member on Reading. We lost Ted Blunt passed away, but his seat now, we have Maria Cabrera filling that seat, but we really want it, and we put the mayor on the commission as well, so to make sure that we have a city's voice, because we know the city has to be involved. These children are our greatest concern, our greatest asset, our greatest resource, and if we're not caring about their education and their future, their educational outcomes, then who is? So we really need the city to be involved. Again, once we finish our draft for this resolution, hopefully we pass it tomorrow, we'll get it to council, and I think it would be outstanding if we can get a resolution from council saying that you support the work of Reading and WLC and moving forward to improve these outcomes for our children.
Thank you,
May
sir.
I follow up?
Yeah.
May I follow up?
We have President Congo with his hand up, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Has there ever been conversation in Dover to regulate daycare or any type of learning centers before the child reaches kindergarten and first grade? Because we know that a lot of times once they reach the first grade, they're already behind, and it's hard for them to catch up. They just they stay behind throughout their entire school year a lot of times. So has there ever been any conversation around doing just that so that the children are better prepared to enter into first grade?
Yeah, there
Well,
are.
the answer in part is all the daycare centers have to follow licensing requirements.
Mm-hmm.
All the early childhood education centers, which most of the daycares are now, but if they're funded by the state they have to follow the Head Start performance standards. And our kids who come to early childhood education programs do better than kids who do not. And that's exactly why, as part of the settlement, we got them to double the number of Head Start slots, and as opposed to spending $6 million a year, it's $12 million, and with also the fact that half of those slots had to be given to community-based organizations. But if you look at the big picture, basically the settlement with the state produced $100 million statewide. Well, $100 million is not monopoly money, but when you look at it in a $2 billion budget, it's not a lot of money. Now, the evaluation, which includes early childhood education, the evaluation from the state that has looked at the success failure or whatever, evaluating the monies that have been spent, their report says we need to spend $500 million, which is exactly what I thought we should be after when we sued. And I wanted to get to that point, but I couldn't walk away from $100 million and leave it on the table. But we all have a responsibility now to try to get those additional resources so that the things that Councilwoman Oliver is talking about, we need mental health specialists, social workers, and people in those schools who can change and modify behavior and also give those children hope in terms of being able to dream, because just because they're behind, there's nothing wrong with them. They can catch up. Properly directed and properly motivated, they can do that. And that's our responsibility to make that happen.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Council. Councilwoman Oliver, you can follow up.
Can you hear me?
We can now, yes.
I got so much in my brain, but I just wanted to reiterate about the meeting at Bayard on June the 4th. As the state rep said, we should encourage all of our, residents, constituents, the parents to, come out and listen and see what's going on. It's up to us. These are our kids, to get more involved in the school district. And as he stated, as council members, we should be more involved. Oh, my question was, when is the next restoration meeting that y'all have that's public? Do y'all have a public meeting that we can be on Zoom, state rep, that we can listen in?
Sadly, our meeting is tomorrow. I believe you meet as well tomorrow. No? Okay, well, it's tomorrow.
No.
Come on over tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to be at Del Tech, and our meetings are public notice. But we do welcome you to participate. Our website is solutionsfordelawareschools.com, and our schedule is there for our meetings. One thing I did want to say in terms of redistricting, many individuals often saying, like, what's going to change? You move this line, you move this district out. What's going to change by just changing the name on the school or who controls the school? That's just the beginning, because we realize that governance is a very important step. First and foremost, you have to have willing partners. You have to have districts who are willing to assist you to meet the need of your students. And sadly, in some cases, you can see that we don't. The councilman mentioned in Riverside, our students are being bused for 13 years out of the city in violation of the neighborhood. You created this Neighborhood Schools Act, and then you're violating it because you're sending them up the road violating it. So we know there is opportunities for us to ask for redress, and it goes far beyond just the boundary, the street line and the boundaries. It also deals with the funding. The councilman mentioned the funding reform. There's going to have to be change to our funding system. Right now, the way we fund our schools in our state, we have so many students equals a teacher. That's not saying this student, this student, and this student have such and such needs that are very different. So, but it doesn't take into account the student needs. So we have to change our funding system where that's in place. We just got this report back telling us we need to do it. So it's a slow process. We're starting those meetings. And then the last thing I'll say is, regarding property tax reassessment, because as this process is being undertaken in our counties, it's going to change the value of our tax system and see who can and who can't really afford a school district. Because we've been told for so long the city of Wilmington can't afford a school district. Well, if we can't, then Woodbridge can't, because how can they afford it and we can't? So what needs to happen? We need to change the system to where areas such as Hocassin with the higher property tax value, they have more money coming in at the property for local. They need to receive less state money. In areas, if Wilmington is property tax deficient, then we need to get more money to balance it out from the state. That's how I believe that we can afford our own school district. And I just think that as we begin to have those funding conversations and reassessment has taken place, we'll be able to have a level playing field. It's no more looking at old numbers, it's looking at current numbers, and they will be updated regularly, so we'll be able to see financially where we stand as a city and the financial needs for us to meet the needs of our students in terms of their academic growth and development.
Well, thanks for answering that question. And my last question, if it's not on Zoom tomorrow, I have something down stubs, but how are we preparing our students to interact in a new school? Because there's so much going on. I mean, that's a question tomorrow. I would like for the WLC to, if you could take that back, that was just one of the questions. You don't have to get into it tonight. And thank you so much, and y'all just keep it up. That's all.
All right. Thank you. Councilwoman Oliver, do you know what time the meeting is, June the 4th, since you mentioned it?
Yeah, it's June the 4th at 7 o'clock. I'm getting the flyer made up as we speak.
Oh, okay.
And I'm going to give it out in the 3rd district and as I go around town. So, I will forward it to you if you like it, if anybody want to, because that, we just had to get some people out there. And I plan on hopefully getting the NAACP and whoever else involved, because this is ridiculous. And I was on a call last night, State Rep, to see that mess that happened at that board meeting. It's horrible. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Any other comments from council members? Councilwoman Harley, please.
Yes, thank you, State Rep. Thank you for your presentation. Thank you, Council Member Street, for your information. A lot of information has been shared and a lot to be processed. But before I go any further, I'm going to hold my resolution because there's something in there that needs to be tweaked. It doesn't need to be voted out anyway. It's not an ordinance, it's just a resolution, so I'm holding it. But I wanted to ask this question. First of all, the Wilmington Learning Collab, myself and Councilmember Oliver, we attended a lot of those meetings before the MOU was ever put together and signed. As it related to Albert being one of the schools in my district closing down, and then Bancroft being one of the schools that was impacted, I thought it was very important to show up at the meetings to understand what was happening, especially, when they were just trying to understand how Bancroft was going to be, the building and all the inputs and all the feedback that they wanted from parents as well as the stakeholders. So myself and Councilmember Oliver was very involved in that. And what I want to say on one point is that whoever is taking that place, I hope that they can be involved with the civic associations where the parents actually come and where they can be reached. Because one of the things that we all know is that the family and parent engagement has been a challenge. But one way to do it, and I know it may be tough, but if you sit in the seat, that means sacrifice, and I do meetings, monthly, where parents, families, residents are there, where we could really be, getting some of that information. So we want to continue to stay involved and engaged as it relates to the Wilmington Learning Collab. That's number one. And then secondly, my question is this: in 2014, 2015, I was a part of this WEAC commission, gathering all this information. They put the report all together. And what is the difference between the consortium and that report that took so many, so many was involved, and just for it to get voted down? And if I recall correctly, the recommendation was to move Christina School District into Red Clay, which sounds like what the work that y'all are doing with the West Reading Consortium sounds very similar to me. Is this similar? And you don't have to go real deep into any detail. I just wanted to know what is the distinct differences, if it's not too much
No,
to ask.
No,
it's it's very, very similar. And this will be the fourth report where basically you say we don't want Colonial and Christina to be in the city. We want those schools to be run by Red Clay and Brandywine. That's what the first three said, and that's what this one says.
And
Now,
I-
I'm sure you want to
yes, sir.
expand on that.
Thank you, sir. And I will say the only, I think, distinct difference that we're doing here now is, as a part of WIC and WEAC, there was a lot of engagement, and sadly, to think about it now, a lot of the reason why WEAC failed at the last minute was because at the last minute, all of these suburban people from out Pike Creek and everywhere else said that they were going to have to flip the bill for Wilmington, basically. And then they threw out this $20 million price tag. Oh, it's going to be too much. You know, that's how much they estimated the cost. And that led to the failure of votes. But now you think about it right now, we've invested $20 million in Reading. We've invested $20 million in WLC. And I'm sorry, yeah, 10 and 10, $20 million, I believe, is between both of them. So that money that they said was too much then, we've already paid to try to fix the mess that we could have fixed then. And I would say that the one distinct difference between WEAC and where we are currently with Reading is that we're saying, where they definitely, initially we were saying we're going to try the river plan with some moderations, but now we're saying we want to have 2 or fewer districts. So if that means going to one district with one district partner, we're fine with that. If that means us having 2 district partners, we're fine with that. But that's what we're going to work out over the next 12 to 18 months to get to that point. And again, it has to be willing district partners, because if you're just here to sit at the table in Wilmington to try to collect, you know, some of this Newcastle County tax pool money, no, that's not what we need. We need individuals who are supporting our districts in one. I think the most important thing to me in this argument is about making our city whole again. Our city has to have a voice. So regardless of where we are, the city has to be involved. And I have future conversations with this body, if you want, about my ideals, about ways in which I believe that the city can really be involved in the educational destiny. And you quickly, just Parks and Rec used to host tutors all around the community centers. I remember my days at Kingswood. Parks and Rec, you place tutors there. We can start there. Small investments, as the councilmen need. We're going to need before school and after school, and so much more for our students in order to meet their needs. And the city has a role to play. And I think the more we fight to get the city to have a role again, the better.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Hey, well, thank to both of you. You answered my question as it related to the distinct differences, because I followed that from the time we got started until the time the legislation got voted on. I remember, if I remember correctly, I think the House side voted yes and the Senate side voted no, but I could be wrong. It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
But I wanted to know that, and please, whatever we can do as the council, like I said earlier, myself and Oliver, because we have schools that were directly impacted, Stubbs, Bancroft, Albert Palmer being closed down. Of course, at that time, that's when the whole new Bancroft, the feedback, the input from the community and the families was very fresh and new. So we was trying to be the eyes and ears and nose for families. And so we have been following everything. Of course, once it got established and agreed on and signed, then it kind of went to the governance of the Wilmington Learning Collab. And so they kind of picked it up from there. And I'm just saying that we want to continue to be engaged and to do as much as we can to support what's best for our children. So please keep us involved and engaged. That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councilwoman Bracy.
I think everything that needs to be said has been said.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Rep. Namdi and Councilman Jay, for all of the work that you guys have been doing throughout the years. It's well acknowledged for me, you know, watching this progress you know, well, when you were still on council, when I was still working for Chris Coons, like this goes back years. And to see where we are now, you know, and knowing that there's so much more work that needs to be done, anything that I can do to be involved. I was sitting here while Councilman Jay was talking, while you were talking, writing down notes, just specifically for what you said, things that we can be involved in and that we can help with, and that we can support and put money and backing behind. So I'm looking forward to those follow-up conversations to really making sure that we do right by these kids, because we haven't.
Very much so. Thank you, Councilwoman. And we do have one person on for public comment, Ms. Helen Furman. You still with us, Ms. Furman? All right, WITN. Any Ms. Furman?
She has to talk or unmute herself.
Ms. Furman, if you could unmute yourself, please.
No, they stepped away.
All right. While we wait for Ms. Furman, I would like to just say thank you to the state rep and to Councilman Street for your wonderful presentations and for your years of dedication to our children, trying to correct this wrong on behalf of our children and the communities. We see these test scores, and it's a problem. This should be a problem for every parent in Wilmington. You know, we are continue to bus our children to these low-performing schools year after year. So, and I'm hopeful I'll speak with President Congo, and hopefully we can get a resolution to support and get the full council support to get down there. Hopefully before next week, before our next council meeting, and get it down there to Dover as well. So, but I appreciate it, and thank you for coming in. Thank you for your time. Anything for Ms. Furman?
Yeah.
No. Okay. Councilwoman Oliver again.
Yeah, thank you. No, I too would like to just thank both reps for, coming and standing up for this fight. We know Jay's been in for years, and I thank Councilman nominee for accepting the torch, and also Councilman Mills. I know you've been involved with it too, so I'd like to thank you for allowing them to come and speak, and I'm glad I was here today. And I just like to, say, thanks to everybody, and we need to keep our eyes open. And I did want to say, this is one, talking about the after-school program and that lunch program. I know President Congo had mentioned about giving Wilmington a Learning Collaborative $2, and maybe President Congo, we can have that conversation, tomorrow, since we are talking about the budget. I think it will be a good thing for us to continue that conversation, since we're talking about $10 million for a school. Wouldn't hurt for us to give, some money for organization as the WLC, what we talked about last week. So that's all I have to say, and y'all have a good evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ms. Furman?
Mr. Chair,
Okay. Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
can
Councilman
I close with this? And I'm not gonna make anybody happy, but I need to tell the truth. When we initially desegregated, the city of Wilmington, under the city school district, paid for lawyers and led the litigation. Once the court order was implemented, the role the city played began to decline, and it got to the point where when there were problems and issues, the view of a lot of elected officials then was, well, J&M gonna take care of it. Coalition gonna take care of it. Lenny will take care of it. Well, Lenny's not here anymore. The coalition became defunct, After the court order was lifted, I formed a new organization. But as I said earlier, I think I got one more trial left in me, but I'm not going to try after that. My point being, the city, as a city, Wilmington, Delaware can no longer be the only city in the United States of America which has no authority and no responsibility over the educational destiny of its own children. And the only people that can fix that is the city and the state.
Sir.
And second, when we desegregated while I was Parks Director, there was an agreement with the school districts that in exchange for not charging the schools for city and water, all the schools provided space for recreational and tutorial activity. That no longer exists. And it's created a major void. We've had changes and modifications and slowdowns and shutdowns of community centers. And I don't know why we can't and shouldn't get back to that. Again, after school programs, before school programs, and people from the community who can work with our children and change and modify behaviors and attitudes. And I've said all that to say, and I took too long, the city should have a major role. And I just can't convey enough, loudly enough to say that that needs to happen sooner rather than later. And we as a city need to demand that.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Bassanite, your hands up.
Yes, yes, Chair. I mean, I just want to just mention, I mean, just for the record, because, for the record, when it comes to funds and money for our inner city kids, when it comes to education, the one unknown thing, or the one thing that's always left off the table that is a really important part of the conversation is, you know, our wage tax, right? That could solve so many of our problems when it comes, I mean, to education. I mean, just making, I mean, even a small little tenth of an increase to that, how that could fund our own inner city youth. But that takes a will of our, you know, our legislators to make that happen. I just want to mention that. I mean, for the record. Number two, it was mentioned about funding for the Wilmington Learning Collaborative. You know, I just wanted to share for the public, like, I'm not sure, well, as of the moment, there isn't like any like formal requests for fiscal year, 25, because that was mentioned. So I just wanted to mention that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bassanite.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Councilman.
When we desegregated, the state took a percentage of the wage tax. What most people don't know is that was because outside counsel has been paid by the city of Wilmington. Local counsel, Herb Morris, Lou Redden, Lenny Williams, had never been paid, and they filed the litigation in '68, worked on it till '78, till it was settled. Well, just before we desegregated, they put in a fee petition, and they got $1 million for 10 years of work. But in 1978, $1 million was a lot of money. So as punishment, the state said, well, they're not running a school district no more. The excuse was they're not running the school district anymore, so we're going to take that percentage of the wage tax. The Baker administration approximated that at least $12 million a year at the time, and that's critical. And the other thing is, I believe, and Omni disagrees, but we got to count the money. As long as we have access to the tax base in the county to fund our schools, there's hope. At the point where we don't have that anymore, we better have an extremely higher level of revenue as a tax base in the city, and right now, we don't have it. especially with all these empty offices and all this other stuff.
All right. Thank you, sir. All right. Well, thank you, and I appreciate the time. All the comments this evening. We're going to go ahead and get ready to close the meeting. Now, I have a few announcements. Our next Education and Youth and Family Services meeting will be Wednesday, June 12th. The next City Council meeting will be Thursday, May 16th. And it's a message to the City Council members. Parks and Rec is reminding all council members to contact them if they have any feedback to the letter that was sent regarding the park sites and positions this summer. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
It's been properly moved and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.